Bennett, or Ben for short, was a seasoned truck driver. He had been on the road for over 2 decades, driving through countless states and staying in all sorts of places. He was a rational man, not easily shaken by the unknown. But what happened to him one night during a routine trip still haunts him to this day. It all started at a small, nondescript motel in a remote part of New York State. Ben was exhausted after a long day of driving. He decided to take a break and rest for the night. The motel looked a bit run down, but he wasn't picky. He just needed a few hours of sleep before hitting the road again. As he checked in, the young man at the front desk seemed disinterested, barely looking up from his phone. He handed Ben the keys to room 107 and mumbled something about breakfast being served at 6 a.m. Ben nodded and made his way to the room, noticing how quiet the place was. There were no other guests in sight, and the parking lot was nearly empty. The room was simple but clean enough. Ben dropped his bag on the bed and glanced around. A small television on the dresser, a nightstand with an old lamp, and a large mirror on the wall. He barely paid attention to it, too tired to care about the decor. He lay down, hoping to get some rest. Just as he was drifting off, he heard a sound. A faint tapping, like knuckles lightly rapping on glass. Ben sat up thinking it must be the wind, but then he realized it was coming from the mirror on the wall. He stared at it, puzzled. The tapping continued, louder now, more insistent. He got up and slowly approached the mirror, feeling an unsettling chill run down his spine. The surface of the mirror looked normal, but Ben felt something was wrong. He leaned in closer, his breath fogging up the glass. And then he saw it, a shadowy figure behind the reflection, as if someone was standing just on the other side watching him. He jumped back, his heart pounding, but when he looked again, there was nothing there. Ben shook his head, convincing himself it was just a trick of the light, or his tired eyes playing tricks on him. He turned off the light and went back to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. The next morning, he packed up his things and was about to leave when he noticed something on the floor. It wasn't his. It was an old, large butcher knife. It looked like it had just been used. The blade was dull, but the handle was worn, as if it had been gripped tightly many times before. He couldn't explain where it came from. He mentioned it to the young man at the front desk, who looked up for the first time with genuine surprise. He hesitated before saying, "That knife, it belonged to our former cook. He disappeared years ago, but he had a bit of a reputation. They say he was a cruel man, suspected of some pretty bad stuff, but the police never found any evidence." Ben felt a shiver run down his spine as he left the motel. He didn't look back. The rest of the day, he tried to shake off the strange feeling, attributing it all to fatigue. By evening, he decided to skip motels altogether and sleep in his truck instead. He found a rest area off the highway, a spot where truckers often stopped for the night. Tonight, though, the place was eerily empty. Ben parked, locked the doors, and settled in, watching videos of his daughter on his iPad. It helped him relax a bit, but he couldn't fully ignore the sense of unease lingering in the back of his mind. Around midnight, just as he was about to fall asleep, he noticed a vehicle pulling into the lot. It was an old van from the 1980s, and it parked a few spots away. Ben felt oddly relieved. At least he wasn't completely alone anymore. But that relief was short-lived. Around 1 a.m., he heard a rustling noise outside his truck. It sounded like someone was moving quietly, trying not to be noticed. Ben peered through the curtain and saw the van had moved. It was now parked directly in front of his truck, blocking his way out. He felt his pulse quicken. Suddenly he noticed a figure lurking by his door, trying to open it. The man wore a dark hood, his face obscured. Instead of running away when Ben flashed the lights, The man jumped onto the side step of the truck and tried the handle again, aggressively this time. Adrenaline surged through Ben's veins. He slammed his foot on the gas pedal, ramming the van in front of him. The van skidded to the side, nearly flipping over. Ben didn't wait to see what happened next. He sped off, pushing his truck to its limits. He drove straight to the nearest city, Buffalo, and went directly to the police station. He recounted everything: the events at the motel, the knife, the man outside his truck. The officers listened attentively, took notes, and promised to investigate. Days passed, and when Ben called for an update, the police told him they found nothing. No sign of the van, no suspicious activity at the motel, no leads whatsoever. It was as if the whole encounter had been erased from existence. To this day, Ben doesn't know what really happened that night. He can only speculate. But every time he stops for the night, he feels a cold, invisible gaze on him, as if someone, or something, is still watching. So, what do you think? Was it all just a coincidence, or was there something darker lurking behind those events? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you make of this story.